Hey students, we are on lesson 7-3, add fractions with unlike denominators. You need your workbooks and scratch paper, your benchmark fractions either pulled up on the computer or the one that I put in your Avid binder, and a pencil. So please pause the video here and go get those things if you don't have them yet. Alrighty, here is our learning goal. I can add fractions with unlike denominators. Here's our solve and share on page 277. So please open your workbook to 277 if you have not already. And let's read through our problem. Over the weekend, Eleni ate 1/4 a box of cereal and Freddie ate 3/8 of the same box. What portion of the box of cereal did they eat in all? So we are working on adding fractions. We've got to make sure we have common denominators in order to add them. So think back to yesterday's lesson, how we found those common denominators. Pause the video here and give this one a try. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. Here's my marker. Okay, so we have 1/4 of the box that Eleni ate and Freddie ate 3/8 of the same box. And so I'm going to be adding them together. Now, when we are adding fractions, I want you to line them up vertically, up and down, because when we create equivalent fractions, our work is more organized and put together when we have it vertical or up and down. So if you did not write it this way, I do want you to practice writing it this way and follow along with the video. So I need to come up with a common denominator. So I like to just write everything out, kind of get it all set up as I get started. So remember, my first question that I like to ask myself is, will my smaller numbered denominator go into my larger numbered denominator? So will 4 fit inside 8? Yes. So I already know my common denominator is going to be 8 because 8 will go into 8 and 4 will go into 8. And so this is one of those happy problems that is a little bit easier to work through. So I am going to, this is like multiplying by the fraction 1/1. I'm not going to change my numerator. I'm not going to change my denominator or the number on bottom. So I put my 3 right there. And so then my 1/4, I have to decide what would I multiply 4 by to get to 8? Well, that would be 2. And what I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top to create an equivalent fraction. So 1 times 2 is 2. And so now that my denominators match with 8, I can add my numerators together. When we add and subtract fractions, we do not change the denominator once they're a common denominator. So I'm going to leave my 8 the same, and I'm going to add my 2 plus my 3, which is 5. So they ate 5/8 of the box of cereal. So just about a little over half. Okay, let's go ahead and talk to our virtual learning bridge on page 278, superstars. Our question today is, how can you add fractions with unlike denominators? And we're talking about Alex. He rode his scooter from his house to the park. Later, he rode from the park to baseball practice. How far did Alex ride? So we're gonna look at this little map right here. We've got his house to the park is 1/2 mile, and then the park to the baseball field is 1/3 of a mile. So we can add to find the total distance that Alex rode his scooter. So I really like the pictures on this because it helps you visualize how they broke it down. So we're going to change our fractions to equivalent fractions like we did in yesterday's lesson with a common or like denominator. So this would be our 1 whole, kind of they're modeling it off of that, and they've got 1/3 here, or that's kind of fuzzy, sorry. I can't see it very well. 1/2 there, and then 1/3 there. So we know that total it's going to be less than a mile still. But now they've listed out the multiples of 2. So they did 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, just like we have practiced in yesterday's lesson and the day before. And then multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9, 12. And so you'll see 12 is a common multiple, but 6 is the least common multiple. That's the number that we're going to choose so that we have smaller multiplication. The number 6 is a common multiple of 2 and 3. So 1/3 and 2/3, or 1/2 and 1/3 can both be written with a common denominator of 6. And so that's what they're going to do here. So they're breaking this down into 6ths so that you can see that this 1/2 is going to have 3 6ths. This 1/3 is going to have 2 6ths. And here's the math that they did right here. They did 1/2 times 3/3. Remember, they're making a common denominator is 3/6. And 1/3 times 2/2 is 2/6. Okay, And so then they're going to add the fractions to find the total number of 6. So they take their 3 6 and their 2 6 and they just add together the numerator. So their 3 and their 2 will make 5 and their 6 stays the same. Because when we are adding and subtracting fractions, our denominator, after we find a common multiple, does not change when we actually do the adding or subtracting. So Alex rode his scooter 5/6 of a mile. So pretty close to 1 mile, but not quite 1 whole mile. All right, so here is another example that we're gonna talk through. We have 5/12 plus 1/4. Again, they have this written horizontally, and that is not the Miss Collins way. We are gonna write it down vertically or up and down because it's better. And that's that. Okay, so if I have my 5/12 and my 1/4, I am going to add these together. So I need to come up with a common denominator. Now my favorite first question to ask, will my smaller number denominator go into my larger number denominator? Will 4 fit inside 12? 4, 8, 12. Yes, it will. And so this is a woohoo problem because it's a little bit easier than having to list the multiples of both of them. It doesn't always work this way. So you still have to list multiples on some of them, and it can be challenging, but you guys can do it. So I know 12 is going to be my common denominator. And so now I need to decide what would I multiply 4 by, or 1/4 by, to get a denominator of 12. Well, that's going to be 3/3. Or you multiply your bottom times 3, you got to do it to the top too. So 4 times 3 is 12, 1 times 3 is 3. So for this one, 12 to 12, I didn't change anything. So that's like multiplying by 1/1. So 12 times 1 is 12, 5 times 1 is 5. So 5/12, 5/12. We didn't change anything. My 1/4 was switched to 3/12. It's the same part of a whole, but these are smaller pieces when we get into our 12s. And then we can add them together. So 5 plus 3 is 8, and normally I'd write it down here, but we have words. And then my 12 stays the same. Now here's a situation where we do have to reduce, even though you found the least common multiple and we put one of our denominators and we decided that it would fit into the other denominator, that would be a multiple of it, still have to reduce it down at the end. We want to give our answers in the most simplified versions. So for 8/12, it is, both numbers are even. So I know I can divide both of these by 2. And then you can think through, okay, is there another number that would go into both 8 and 12? Well, I could divide it by 4. Because 8 divided by 4 is 2, 12 divided by 4 is 3. And so 2/3 is our final simplified answer because sometimes at the end you do have to simplify it down. Now, if you did want it to divide it by 2, you could just do that twice. So 8 divided by 2 is 4/6. Which is equal to 2/3. Sometimes it's just easier to cut things in half. And so if they're both even and that's the route you want to take, you might do it a couple more times, but it might be just as fast because you can cut things by 2 a little bit faster. Okay, let's go ahead and try one more. Okay, so in the example that we just did on the last slide, if the park was 1/8 a mile from the baseball practice instead of 1/3, how far would Alex ride his scooter in all? So if I look back at that map, we had, the house was, the park is 1/8 from the, so we had 1/2 and 1/8 is our new problem. Okay, and so what I'm going to do here is I still have to add them together. I'm going to do the same steps, but I need to find a common denominator again. So first question Ms. Collins loves to ask first. Will my smaller number denominator, remember smaller number, bigger pieces, go into my larger number denominator, the 8 smaller pieces here? I know that's a little confusing, but that's fractions. So will 2 fit inside 8? 2, 4, 6, 8. Yep, I just listed my multiples. I got to that other number, so I know it will go into it. So I know 8 is going to be my common denominator. So, and I didn't change anything from 8 to 8, so I'm not going to change anything with my numerator. My denominator and numerator will stay the same for that fraction. For this one, I will have to do a little bit of multiplication. So 2 times what? I'm going to fix this, is 8. Well, 4. So what I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. 1 times 4 is 4. So we get 4/8. And that makes sense because 4 is half of 8. So that makes sense that it's half. So now I need to add 1 plus 4 to get my 5. And my denominator, because I'm adding, will stay the same. Now, if I look at this, I know there's not a number that's going to go into both 5 and 8 to reduce this down. So they're not both even, so it won't be 2. 3 doesn't go into 5 or 8. 4 goes into 8, but not 5, and then you're back to 5. And so there's, you know, nothing in there, no factors that you can reduce it down by. Okay, I would like you guys to go ahead and try number 3. You can use those fraction strips to help. Add them together, and then you'll put your answer in the box and we'll talk about it in group. Alrighty, great job, guys.